Hi everyone, today I'll be discussing Neophyte's paper, Naming and Nonexistence. He begins with some background assumptions. This first assumption is the following. Names do not function semantically like definite descriptions and do not semantically express the Phrygian senses. Therefore, names referring to their bearers without semantically expressing any kind of descriptive information. This is known as the theory of direct reference. His second assumption is the following. He affirms the non-existence of creatures of fiction and myth. He says fictional characters and mythical creatures lack reference, and therefore do not exist. He also says realist views of fictional entities are incorrect. He says fictional characters are abstract artifacts created by writers of fiction, also some can be considered abstract objects. He suggests people to resist the Millian tendency to maintain that fictional names are not empty, but instead refer to abstract objects. He provides the example of philosopher Edward Zalta's theory. Zalta says fictional objects become entities that a pretense theorist already accepts. Therefore, if a pretense theorist is already committed to the existence of such entities, they should accept names like Zeus and King Lear. Veit doesn't agree with this. He says one who believes that there do not exist things of a certain kind should not go about constructing entities to identify with things of that kind. In the next section, he discusses the no proposition view. He considers that sentences with empty names fail to express propositions. He brings up David Braun's theory of the problem of the proposition expressed. He says, take the sentences Vulcan is a planet and Vulcan does not exist. It begins with, the sole semantic value of a proper name, if it has any, is the individual to which it refers. Vulcan is a proper name that does not refer. Therefore, Vulcan has no semantic value. A sentence containing a proper name that lacks a semantic value fails to express a proposition. Therefore, Vulcan is a planet and Vulcan does not exist fail to express a proposition. Veit agrees with this, but he also suggests we should admit that there is more to the meaning of a name than just its reference. He thinks that reflection on our utterances involving empty names tends to support it. Given that the name Vulcan, for example, does not refer, and given that it contributes no descriptive information to sentences, meaning it seems plausible that sentences like Vulcan is a planet and Vulcan does not exist literally say nothing. He says the truth of a sentence consists in satisfying its linguistic truth conditions, which does not always correlate with expressing a true proposition. He then compares the alternatives. Veit says simple subject-predicate sentences where an empty name fills the subject position cannot express propositions but can have truth values. Propositions play an important role in our semantic theorizing. With respect to utterances containing ordinary names occurring in direct discourse, singular propositions seem to capture the possible world's truth conditions, or the modal profile of what it said. A sentence containing empty name expresses a proposition with a gap or unfulfilled position. Veit talks about Braun's view of the gappy proposition theory. Braun says gappy propositions can be true or false, and hence that some sentences with empty names can have their truth values in virtue of what they say. Veit disagrees. He says this theory does not provide a conception of what is said that is robust enough to be consistent with the claim that a sentence has a truth value in virtue of what is said. Finally, he discusses empty names, attitudes, and truth in fiction. He begins by addressing that a sentence like Virginia believes that Santa is jolly has a truth value, but it can express the very same sort of proposition that is expressed by a similar belief report, with a that clause containing an ordinary proper name instead of an empty one. He then expresses the idea that in uttering a belief report, the speaker uses a sentence of his or her own language to describe or represent something that someone believes. He provides an example of applying the view of indirect discourse. Take the sentence Sherlock Holmes is a detective. In his view, this sentence is literally false, since it is not the case that the referent Sherlock Holmes has the property of being a detective. He also says pretending seems to be a propositional attitude. The form S pretends that P can be understood along the lines of the account of attitude reports. He then concludes with the following statements. Simple subject-predicate sentences that contain empty names in the subject position do not express propositions. Belief sentences and attitude reports that contain empty names in indirect context can be true and express propositions. That clauses merely represent or describe the alleged content of the attitude, and sentences with empty names are significant enough to be able to do this. Finally, our judgments about what is true in fiction are themselves made true by facts about certain cognitive attitudes of human beings. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.